Thank you very much for joining us. Essay Oikala, morning essay. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Good morning, Ugo. I'm good. Good morning, Lagos.
Excellent. Thank you very much, essay. And we have Ugo Dre. Morning, Ugo. How are you
Hey,
doing
morning
today?
Ayo, morning SA, morning everyone. How you guys doing?
I am very well, thank you.
All
Thanks
right.
very much. Now, you can join the conversation online. Go onto our YouTube channel, youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. You can also send your messages through that platform. We're also live on WhatsApp. So send your message to WhatsApp 0809 444 When I say live, I mean we're live to take your messages, not that we're streaming live on WhatsApp. All right, let's get on straight to our first story for today. Ugo, Senate uncovers how Jonathan Sambo, INEC, fan, others they've diverted 665.8 billion naira this day. I feel like playing, like, those movie soundtracks of when, like, but yes, another uncovering of monies that were earmarked for a particular project being diverted, and by former President Goodluck Jonathan, his deputy Namadi Sambo, Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), Nigerian Army, Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, and some ministries, departments, and agencies who benefited from alleged diversion of 665.8 billion naira from the Solid Minerals Development and Stabilization Funds through the Accountants General of the Federation.
Yeah, haven't we heard this before?
Yes.
Right. Yes, it sounds like a movie. It sounds like something that we've heard before.
Mm-hmm.
And this Auditor General, I believe, is it Accountant General rather? He's been in the news lately. He seems to be working on overdrive.
Yes, he.
Right. So his committee or his team or his staff members seem to be uncovering a lot of stuff that happened in the past under previous government. What will be interesting to know though is how many he has uncovered under the current government, because there's a government in power already. So
Yeah.
this knack for always going back to what happened in previous government sometimes it just seems like uh, you know there is there are ulterior motives there, and people who would typically look at this government from a distance would say, "Look, here we go again." Nothing really comes out of investigations like this. All we just hear is huge sums, and the thing is that they don't even the way they even call out this money. You wonder whether people think 666 billion. That's, I mean, in that times, in the currency or exchange rate of 2015 or so, that was about $2 billion, right, or thereabout. So I don't know how much people still. And then again, in the news again, is the same guy, Sambo. This is someone that they've held, all these years, and we still haven't gotten any form of judgment on his matter, and he's still the same guy in the spotlight again. So it just all reads of an investigation that probably a report that needs further maybe perhaps investigation and
Yeah.
review. The senators would typically jump on things like this. I expect them to, but from experience, it never leads to any major outcome. Right?
Isn't that quite unfortunate? Because it's good to have all these headlines, this how like sensational headlines,
Yeah.
and then we don't, because what we see here is that there are projects that are we don't pay a lot of attention to. Huge sums of money is allocated to that project, and of course, because it's lying fallow, it's seen as easy money for some politicians to just take on. Now let's break down what they use the money for. So they said a 1.5 billion naira severance allowance for each of former President Goodluck Jonathan and his vice Namadi Sambo. What is the provision for severance pay for a president, or for former president and former vice president? What is the provision for their pension, or for their life after presidency? I know there's a huge and attractive package for them. Why take this amount of money? We look at also budget, extra budgets for INEC during the election year. We see that happening now, and I remember that someone said when we talked about, oh, the president signing in extra money for the elections, or budgetary allocation to INEC etc, as being suspect, or when you start signing several allocations for agencies that have been on repair of refineries, things that creep up, but unfortunately these monies are not accounted for.
like I said, to be honest, maybe I'm being unfair, but I take stories like this with a pinch of salt. I don't think that there's anything in here, from my vantage point here, and that's because, if you go back, you've seen, particularly in this government,
Yeah.
you've seen headlines like this. It happens like almost every year, and different forms. Either it's the auditor general or it's the accountant general doing one report or the other, and you keep seeing stuff like this. Like I've said now, 3 years from now or 4 years from now, when a new government coming, if it's in the opposition party, for example, you're gonna be seeing headlines like this. So it's happening now. So
But no
what?
consequence.
Yeah. So what are they discovering now? Can we see what they're discovering now? The Senate said they're giving them 60 days to come back to giving the people 60 days to return the money. How? How would they return the money? Even if they had stolen this money, like return the money in 60 days. So I don't read too much here. Perhaps maybe there's something, but I don't see anything here.
Samuel reminds us of the NDC hearing. He's asking that is the mic still off? We haven't heard anything.
Exactly.
And then George from Okokomaiko says Ugo, in his conversion, it's 666 billion naira as of when GJ left was $3.5 billion.
Oh.
And but you're right, there is nothing here. This story is deliberately put out to distract us from something. The real question is, what is it? It's quite unfortunate. Yes, like you mentioned, Ugo, they say that they are waiting for them to return the money. We are borrowing here and there. Maybe if all the people they asked to return monies had done that, we wouldn't need to be borrowing. Frank from Berger says, Ayo, what exactly are we to do with this first story? Frank, it's a big one. It's why we desensitize to stealing of money. Yes.
Is it stealing or they diverted the funds
I
to
don't
something
know,
else?
it's
And they didn't
just-
even mention if due process was followed.
Well, from this article, it doesn't seem like
Like,
that, and that's why
exactly.
there's an
So,
implication.
That's what they claim.
That's what.
Yeah.
That's what.
Until you hear from the other side.
Do you get?
All right, let's move on to our second story, shall we? Next story: Court frees El Zakzaki wife says they have no case to answer. This is from the Premium Times essay. When I saw this headline, I was like, oh, interesting. But reading the detail of the story, it's not Uhuru yet. We have here from Premium Times that the Kaduna State High Court has freed the embattled leader of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, Ibrahim El Zakzaki, and his wife Zinatu. They said in a ruling that lasted over 8 hours on Wednesday, the judge, Gideon Kurada, upheld the no-case submission filed by Mr. El Zakzaki and his wife. Well, here again, it's not just about the court ruling. Unfortunately, we're going to be having conversations around if the government would honor this ruling. Please take us to the story.
So, if you all remember, in 2015, the incident that happened between the Shiites and the Nigerian army, where the army said that one of their officers was killed, right? And the Shiite got like 349 Shiites were killed during the scuffle, and El Zazaki and his wife was taken on board. In 2016, they went to court, free, asked to be granted bail. The government said no. And so when I saw this story, what came to my mind was, will this current administration honor the court ruling?
What's their antecedent? What's their precedent? What have they done in the past?
The what?
What's their antecedent? What has been the case in the past?
So if you remember, like you mentioned, the NSA Dasuki is currently in detention, even though court ruling, even from the ECOWAS that said let go, it should be granted bail. So it is a pattern, and our number 8 story today is already giving signs as to penalties for these break in rule of law. The court has ruled in favor to be granted bail. There is no case submission, several no case submission, but the government still insists that they should be held in detention. I should remember that even when they were taken on board, it took them 2 years before they were granted fair hearing in court. So the Kaduna High Court, it's fair enough they went to court again to get a no case submission, but will the government honor it? And from past antecedents, I would say no. They would not.
So where does this take us to? Does it mean what then is the purpose of the courts? If we're saying that there's a ruling and the government decides which to honor and which not to honor, then it means that it almost makes the courts useless. I mean, it takes away their powers.
So not necessarily, because It does, yes, that's true, it does. And obviously, the power is decentralized. Unfortunately, executive finds its way to step into bounds where the judiciary controls. But however, they are claiming that the section in the constitution that says that where an individual is perceived to be a threat to society can be held. However, there's still that same section, right, that allows for fair hearing in court within 30 days, which they've obviously flaunted. So I'm not sure why this government still insists of, breaking these laws, and it's already affecting us as Nigerians. And as you all know, it's just the current administration doing this, but the international community watching would use that to judge Nigerian cases going forward. So I don't know what's happening there, but I think the administration should honor these court rulings because it's becoming one too many.
And just to add, I think it's actually very embarrassing that somebody held for 4 years or 4.5 years or so will be freed based on having no case to answer. I mean, no case to answer. Not like you're even saying you're not found guilty or just no case to
There's
answer.
no basis for his.
So the government basically had no case, but you've held this guy for 4 years. In fact, this is not even the first time that they're saying there's no case to answer. This is actually the second time, right? Because they did it a few years ago, and then the government came back again with something new, and then roped him in. So the concern for me really is if government can't basically try, or if the government can't prosecute cases like this very well, right? No matter how genuine it is or not. My concern is how then can government prosecute high-profile cases that are actually more perceived as terrorism cases, like dangerous cases, right? Cases that everybody knows, or maybe high-profile kidnap cases. You worry. You're like, can you guys really prosecute these things? Can you actually get judgment for stuff like this? Because that you've arrested someone and you put him in jail, the law is clear, innocent to proven guilty. If you like, hold him in jail for 10, 20 years, right? So that's my concern here. And he's basically just been told to go. No case to answer. 4.5 years ago. And all the time wasted, resources, government resources deployed, lot of stuff, and it's just...
Thank you for highlighting that. The thing about it is that we still have to wait to see if indeed he'll be released, if something else would crop up.
And unfortunately, there's no Twitter to heighten.
Was there not Twitter when they arrested him for 4.5?
No,
4.5 years.
I'm sure with the pressure coming from Nigerians, what are you guys charging him for? Should let us know. Is there more to this story that Nigerians are not aware of?
Yes. JP says that exactly is a major worry. 4 years of a life of a person just gone, not a go-to. The judiciary is really bleeding. Sad. Is he going to be compensated? I think the first question is he going to be finally released? Then we start to talk about compensation.
As well now.
Yes.
There's Nnamdi Kanu and there's the Sunday Igboho guy as well.
So Sunday Igboho is in Benin, and it seems like the Beninese government are going through due process. We're yet to see what the conclusion of that case would be, but at least it seems like there's at least his wife has been released. They've refused to extradite him to Nigeria. They're trying to follow due process, but Nnamdi Kanu is another kettle of fish. But we'll keep our eye on these ones and see what the outcome would be. Hopefully we'll hear from the federal government, and that should possibly tell us if finally El Zakzaky and his wife will be released. Our next story, on ease in forex markets as dollar heads towards 550 naira per dollar. I'm so glad you're here. When the news broke yesterday, BDCs or the CBN saying they were going to stop giving cash or funding BDCs, and they're going to suspend further licenses of new BDCs. It was big news yesterday. We discussed it. Now, 24 hours, as expected, after the Central Bank of Nigeria came down hard on Bureau de Change operators for allegedly facilitating money laundering and other forex infractions, the naira fell significantly against the US dollar at the parallel market yesterday. This report in The Guardian also contains analysis or comments from different economists, BDC operators on this news from the CBN. Please, I'd like to hear your take on this. And mine, I think this is an opportunity to mention that immediately after this, during Lagos Talks 91, we're going to have a guest, a BDC operator, come to give, we're going to be discussing during Lagos Talks 981. And also, Ugo, I'd love to hear your take on this so that we can use that as part of our conversation.
Thanks, Ayo. I think for some of us who, read this a couple of days ago, it was basically maybe like deja vu because we've seen it happen before, and that was in 2016. But let's look at the real issue. So the CBN's allegation is that BDCs, when you give them dollars, CBN gives them $20,000 a week or so, at 390 something, and they're supposed to just add it to naira margin and then sell to you and I, but they would usually sell at 500, and based on that they're buying them, and they're like 5,000 or so of them out there, and the CBN is now saying, you know what, we're not going to be giving BDCs this money again, we're going to be giving the banks the money.
Yeah.
Now, something similar happened in 2016, and the naira suffered bad, right? And of course, there are a number of reasons why that happened. We didn't actually have supply. Today, this time around again, we still have shortages, right? But sometimes you need to look at these things from multiple angles, and there's always an incentive for people to misbehave, right? If you create incentives for them, they will misbehave. So let's even start from the 393 and the 2 naira. So you give them $20,000 a week, and they're supposed to make 2 naira margin. So that's 40,000 naira a week, right?
Yeah.
And so you multiply that by 4. So the BDC guy who decides to be very honest, very upright, you expect him to make 160,000 naira per month. That's not gonna happen for moving that kind of cash. Even the regular guy on the street makes more than that. So that's never gonna happen. So what you've basically done is created incentives for people. Now what happens next is the guy would look for other sources for dollars. So he gets maybe $50,000 somewhere else, maybe somebody's bringing him money, and when that person is bringing him money to him, that person is going to sell dollars to the BDC guy at how much? At the black market rate, right? And then if they sell to him at the black market rate, he puts a margin on top and sells to somebody else. Now they mix that $20,000 with all the money as well, and everything just goes at the black market rate because money is fungible. So I think it's just more than just saying, oh, they are corrupt. There are clear incentives for them to engage in a lot of all these malpractices and fraudulent activities. Because yes, it's clear fraud, they shouldn't do that. But it's just the way the entire forex market is designed. So the only way we can have some form of stable exchange rate in this country is one, if you have dollar supply coming into the economy. We don't have that now. Oil sales revenue is not as robust as it was 3 years ago. Foreign investors are not coming into Nigeria. We just got a report out yesterday, and it was bad. So they are still not back in this country, and likely not going to be back till the end of the year. So there's still going to be that forex scarcity, right? And then most businesses that actually earn forex have stopped bringing forex through the official channels because of a lot of the capital controls that you have on ground today. So you can't move money in, you can't move money out. There's so many rules here, so many restrictions, blocking things. Of course, for obvious reasons, for good reasons, but it's not just working. They're all counterproductive, and so people would rather exchange money over the wires. And that's what's happening now. So that to me is why it's likely that things could get worse before it gets better.
Yes, in this article it says we might hit 600 naira to a dollar by August.
It's
in
likely.
a few days.
In fact, there's an analysis that even suggests far worse. I just want to say it on radio, but suggests far worse because if you remember in 2016 when it happened, naira was going for like 260 something. By the end of the year, it was 495.
Yeah,
that was like a 40-something% devaluation. So do the math today, you find out how alarming it could get.
So what would in this article, right, Ugo, as I mentioned, we had a retired investment banker, professor of economics in Nasarawa University, and a number of people who had their own stance. If you were being the founder, editor in chief at Nairametrics, guru, financial guru, what would be your recommendation? Are you for or against this ban on BDCs from the CBN? If yes or if no, what would be a scenario for you that would work for the Nigerian climate?
It's a tough question, right?
Yeah.
So BDCs employ people, at least maybe like four people. The regular BDC you have like four people, so you'll probably be looking at 8,000 jobs or 9,000 jobs on the line already because of this.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, I never want to be, in support of whatever will take food of people's table.
Yes.
But in terms of the role in the economy, I think there are probably just too many. I don't see how the CBN manages 3, 4, 5,000 BDs. Like, why are there so many of them? Why are they so proliferated? They shouldn't have that much BDCs, because are we like, why are we always anyway? We're dollar hungry.
Well,
country,
which is a
big problem
Yeah.
You
in
don't earn
itself.
dollar.
You don't earn dollars, but you
We want
always
to
want to
spend.
travel.
Yeah,
You
you
want to go
want-
on vacation. You want to buy expensive things. You want to do, but you don't earn a single dollar. So how do you expect the exchange rate to be stable? It's never going to be stable. We're always going to be on the other side of the valuation. So the dollar would always be more valuable than naira, because we have this insatiable, thirst,
Yeah.
for dollars. So in terms of, banning them, I don't think it's going to work, because it didn't work in 2016 when
Okay.
it happened. I think that there are just too many of them, and rather than just throw away the kettle on the back, but the bathwater, was that
And the baby and
The baby
bath
and the
water.
bathwater, yeah.
And the dirty
CBN
bath
should
water.
just, the people that are not complying. Why don't you just get rid of them and
Right.
allow the ones that know how to do the business remain? Except you're saying that the entire, all of them.
So
all-
no to
all BDC.
blanket ban.
Yeah,
Fix the sector.
yeah, I think it
All
should
right.
just-
Thank you very much. Good morning, guys. I think the CBN is getting it all wrong all over again. As the biggest African economy, we must solve the issue of import substitution before trying to defend the naira. It is another opportunity for racketeering at the banks. The same banks that won't give you mint, but you see mint at Owambe parties because they sell for a profit. This is from Orisha. All right, let's move on to our next story. Power grid collapses again amid lack of backup capacity, says the Punch newspaper. If you were to open this paper and you read this, you think you're opening an old newspaper. In fact, it's mini series, part 1, part 2, part 3.
February.
Yes. What
March.
is really the problem with? Why is the transmission company of Nigeria finding it so difficult to, or why are they having these grid failures, power outages? What is the solution?
Solution. So if you go through statistics, right, according to research conducted by an energy firm, from 2013 to date, we've had like about 130 grid collapse, partial to complete grid collapse, and we all know the impact of the power sector to economic growth, and we're currently even facing economic challenges coupled with issues in our power sector. Now, you've had the transmission companies, the generating companies, and the discos, right? A recurring theme: issues around regulation, centralization or decentralization of power, and funding. They have obsolete equipment used to transmit this energy to the end users. And also, we have 8 discos in the country. In Lagos, we have Eco Disco and Ikeja Disco. Do they have the capacity to effectively and efficiently transmit electricity to everybody living currently in Lagos? I would say no. So there are funding issues, the issues around equipment that they have, and also regulatory issues. If all these are not effectively tackled, we'll keep on going. And I do not even see Nigeria coming out of this issue within the next 10 years.
10 years?
Yes, I do not, because
So
if
are
we're
you
not,
saying that the restructuring of the power sector hasn't quite worked? With the
obviously,
Gencos,
it's
the
obvious,
discos,
it's obvious it hasn't. On the average, right, looking from 2013 to date, we have at least 9 grid collapse every year. And every single time each new administration comes up and tells us, oh, we're restructuring the power sector, we're doing this and that. If you not, it's just like part of the issues we're having in our refinery, right? If you do not get in the right equipment to transmit this electricity, the Gencos, there's funding. You see the Gencos and the TCN complaining that the TCN are not paying enough for the power generated. And even the DISCO saying that the amount of energy transmitted from to them, they do not have the capacity to admit or even transfer this. So there's a lot of issues across the different pockets, right? And if it is not properly tackled, we'll keep on having the same issue over and over again.
You know what's frustrating? Maybe frustrating is a tough word, but what is a bit upsetting about some of the headlines that we've read today is that we're back to saying we can't do anything. Okay, the news has come. We said that with the first story on the uncovering, that what's the point? It's just another headline. We've talked about it with El Zagzaki. Okay, the court has ruled. What will the federal government do? With the power grid now, we're saying in 10 years, we're still
So
going to have the same
it has to be
challenges.
intentional,
Okay.
right? Bits and pieces. Do they really want? See, does the government really want to restructure and make power sector in Nigeria effective? It
All right.
starts from that question.
So
If
the
yes,
will to
exactly.
even do it. All right, thank you. Federal government lines up 36 billion naira for COVID-19 third wave, 4,261 cases recorded in 30 days. You know, Ugo, the challenge is that I think people are still taking this thing really lightly. But let me just let you know that the country recorded 404 cases on Tuesday, the highest in the last 1 month. Now, it's also important to know that we're not even testing enough. So we're not testing enough yet. The numbers are increasing. So imagine how many people are around with COVID, spreading it, not knowing what's going on. Please take us through the story.
Yeah, I think that look, first of all, the according to the story, the 36 billion is it's basically part of the measures that are put in place to curb, COVID-19, and but that's really not the real thing. The issue here is vaccine. I think that vaccine and COVID-19 protocols and those things that you have to do that we've always done before. So I think that people have to take this very seriously. It's out there, and Nigerians are not immune at all. Let's not kid ourselves. I actually think the numbers are more than what they're reporting today, because a lot of people don't even bother to go to the hospitals anymore or to go and do tests. People just stay in their houses and just treat themselves like typical malaria, and then maybe get better. Maybe perhaps our resistance level is better, but this thing is real, and I think that if there's any way that the government can start to resolve this thing, I think a lot of the provisions that we had last year, we got to bring them back. Enforce wearing of masks, social distancing has to start all over again. And I think that if time is not taken, it's just that it's very expensive. You might start to see lockdowns again happen. Yeah, because if you don't vaccinate as much as you should, right, then a lot more people are going to be in danger of dying. And that's really my concern here. But I was happy to read in the news, I think yesterday, that the US had approved vaccines for Nigeria. So we're expecting to see a lot more vaccines come into
and they also approved to I think over billions of naira for us to get more vaccines. Yes. Johnson and Johnson vaccines.
Yeah, it's important that we get vaccines. I would encourage people to go and get their vaccines. And the strange thing is that even getting a vaccine is not 100% foolproof against COVID. It's just that perhaps it helps you recover better.
Yeah.
But not getting a vaccine is even worse. So if you don't want to get a vaccine, then I'll suggest that you strictly comply with COVID-19 protocols. That disease, or whatever it is called, is very contagious, and it's stubborn, and it's not likely to go anytime soon.
And I think we also have to try in terms of how we interact with society, right? A lot of people will tell you when you speak to them, which COVID? Or the government is just setting all these policies in place, so international community see them as if they're being serious. You see parties, right, where people are not wearing masks, no social distancing. You even see political parties, political rallies, and that. So I think it starts from there, the seriousness, where people see these elites, right, that they look up to say, oh, come on, because there's this perception that, oh, when they take it serious somewhat, the average man would think, oh, this is really serious. But you're telling me to wear masks. You're seeing even the president at some point. Come on.
Thank you so much. That's important. Ibrahim says the third wave is real. As I type, I'm just recovering. At an isolation center just last week, there was no more oxygen. The government won't tell you this because they can't afford another lockdown. Note, I have been fully vaccinated. So just buttresses the point that Ugo made, that's not even a 100% guarantee. It is just us being as proactive as possible and making sure that the effect is not as bad. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I just want you, just in a sentence, and this statement from the president will increase education funding by 50% in 2022-2023.
I UNESCO said 15 to 20% budget education, right? We're not even close to 8%.
We're about 5.6.
No, you know, do you know?
We're not even,
So
we're not even close to.
you
So
eat
it's sweet to pledge. I pledge to be.
He says
a
50%.
lawyer.
Remember, he said 50% to increase it by 50. So increase the current percentage by 50%. So don't get it twisted. They're not saying 50%.
No, I'm not saying 50%.
I know. I'm
even saying that even getting that 50% probably increase.
No, I think that would be really bad. Do you know what? That would be only about 7.
ASU is complaining, right? We've not even finished having conversation with them, right? Yeah. There are a lot of issues with our education sector. It's good to pledge. I'm not saying the government will not do it, but my point is, looking at what's currently ongoing in the education sector, do you think?
All right. Let's end on that note. Do you think? All right. Thank you so much, Ese Oyikala and Ugo Dre. Ugo, are you joining me for the conversation on BDCs?
No.
How can you disappoint your listeners? I put you on the spot by asking you on air. All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Ugo Dre and Ese Oyikala. Thanks to all our listeners. Unfortunately, we couldn't take all comments and from WhatsApp on YouTube. But let's take this further. At 8:10 a.m., it will be time for Lagos Talks 91. So do join us then. Good morning.
Union Bank, your simpler, smarter.
Thank you so much.